But to kick off, I'm very pleased to say, the expert on all things international and political.
Oh, but that's an alarmingly broad scope of things I've got to be an expert on.
It means I can throw you anything I like, Isabel. It's Isabel Oakeshott, of course, TalkTV's international editor. Can we just kick off and talk about Starmer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because frankly, I was astonished that not only did this person get up there and get so close to him and be able to have his hands in his pocket and pull out, fortunately, what was only glitter. But they took ages to get hold of him and remove him.
Can you imagine this happening in the United States of America? It just would never happen. Anyone who did that to a senior politician would be risking getting shot, frankly. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that we should shoot people, certainly not. I much prefer our way of approaching things, but that was a terrible breach, and I think it must have been pretty frightening for Sir Keir Starmer up there.
I thought he held it together quite well.
He came out of it very well. I think he was very calm. He made appropriate couple of jokes. He made light of it. He then did the rest of the speech without his jacket on, which is probably a better look for him anyway.
He had less glitter on it, didn't he, basically?
I mean, anyone who puts a shine on Keir Starmer, there will be people who are actually grateful for a little bit of gloss on Keir Starmer, because he's very boring, generally comes across very uncharismatic, doesn't he? But I think the point here is that should never have been allowed to happen. It could have been, as you say, something much more dangerous than glitter. And, you know, the assailant in that case actually did manhandle the leader of the opposition. I think that must have been pretty alarming. I don't understand why he got as far as he did for as long as he did.
I think also, I might be wrong, but I think the leader of the opposition has actually police protection, doesn't he? Can't remember. I know he gets an official car, and that's
the way these things work is very strange. So if you're a former defence secretary, you go on getting protection for a long time, and often well after they actually want it. And then other figures, big name politicians who don't actually have seats in the House of Parliament, I'm thinking of Nigel Farage, don't get any police protection at all. So I don't pretend to remember whether he would have police protection, but he would certainly have a lot of security at a party conference.
They took ages to get there, and I think that's the point. Now, you and I, of course, have suffered party conferences for many years.
I love them. What are you talking about?
I loathe them. I never liked them. I used to do a few receptions, and then I would get out of there. It was one big echo chamber. It never motivated me. I never got excited. They just didn't suit me. But actually, if you go around the halls and you try and get in another room, or you try and get an invitation to, I don't know, the Spectator Party or Sky's Party.
I'm always on that list.
Well, you are. I'm not. You can't just walk in and get that. So this person, I'm sure it'll emerge, has obviously managed to get hold of a pass. But to get close to the stage is no easy thing to do on that stage. You can't just walk up there beforehand and get around there. We have seen other instances, notably Theresa May, you'll remember, where someone gave her a P45.
Yeah, I do remember that.
But that was literally getting up from a seat and going there before anyone could get to them. This is what strikes me as interesting, is that actually I think people just ignored this. They just felt he was a member of the Labour Party, they were in a safe space and everything was going to be great, which of course you can't do.
Well, I wasn't in the hall, so I don't know about the geography of it or how they got on the stage. I actually disagree with you. I think it probably is fairly easy to get up. You just register as a delegate. You know, I doubt the due diligence is so forensic that you could pick out someone who might do something slightly nutty. We see these breaches all the time with Just Stop Oil characters. I don't think it would have been particularly difficult to perpetrate, at least to get up onto the stage. The surprise is that he was able to manhandle Sir Keir for so long. The other kind of weird thing about this protest is that the individual concerned wasn't wearing any kind of branding, or there was no kind of...
Well, are you clear what he was protesting about?
Life in general.
Well,
I mean,
he did seem pretty fed up.
Politics in general. He wants a people's house, a house for the people, or something.
A house for the people.
So I assume what he means is he wants some kind of more representative House of Parliament, perhaps proportional representation of some kind. I mean, it's a pretty ineffective protest in that sense, because we don't know who he is or what he really stands for. He's just managed to grab some headlines rather pointlessly.
Right. Well, the only thing that I would I would suggest if we learn from this at all, which we don't often do, is that actually they just create a wider space between the leaders and the audiences. It's
a pity to have to do that.
But people do that at AGMs.
But this is going to happen time and again, isn't it? And we want our politicians to be able to go out and meet people in a normal way. Every day, politicians in their interactions with ordinary voters risk some kind of assault. We see it in the run-up to every election and in normal times, and our MPs do feel vulnerable for that.
Well, I think we should come on to that at some point. But listen, we have now the statement from the protesters. The People Demand Democracy, rolls off the tongue, is a new group calling for an upgrade to the UK political system. Who calls for an upgrade to the new political system? Using civil disobedience to get their message across.
Great.
Oh, good. Now, are they going to be blocking roads? They are calling for a fair proportional voting system for Westminster elections and a permanent legally binding National House of Citizens, selected by, wait for it, democratic lottery.
Right, well, this is a load of twaddle, but let's just be clear about how they could achieve their aims just by not voting for either of the two main parties. So if what you want is proportional representation, which is a perfectly legitimate political ambition, and it would give everybody in this country a position in which they're not disenfranchised, their vote counts, then what you need to do is not vote Labour or Conservative. Vote for a party that wants proportional representation, so that that party gets enough backing to have enough seats in Parliament that there is a hung Parliament. And at that point, maybe there will be.
There is an alternative, of course, you see. Some will argue that the most likely party to form a third party is the Lib Dems.
Right.
And they go into coalition, I don't know, with someone like the Conservatives.
Yes.
And they hold a referendum on proportional representation and it gets thrown out.
Well, that could happen. I mean, we know that's already happened. But the mechanism you've described is the one that I was describing. The Lib Dems, if they go into coalition, may well make a referendum on proportional representation part of their deal, as they did back in 2010.
Why do you think there's no appetite for it? Well, at the time, that it was roundly sort of rejected.
So I
in the
completely
referendum.
disagree with you that there's no appetite for it now. I think things have changed dramatically. Certainly, my view at the time of the original referendum, which was rather unexcitingly described as an AV referendum.
It was, yeah, it was.
So a referendum on an alternative voting system. And it suited those who were against a change to the system to make it sound as boring as possible. And it was far too complicated. And at the time, there was no appetite for it. And I think people felt no need for it because we actually already had a
So you think the disillusionment 10 years on might drive a different... I mean, you've got a supporter here, is the protester was bang on, 70% of people in this country don't vote due to lack of interest. Yeah, but would they vote with AV? But they say we keep flip-flopping from Conservative to Labour and nothing changes.
People are very frustrated, I think, of the idea that it's just one or the other. And for many people, they don't feel that either party are actually that different. The Tories, for example, to take immigration, something people feel very strongly about. The Tories talk a good game on it, but have actually delivered a situation where we've got a population bigger than it ever was before. 1 million extra people and more came in last year, perfectly legally, plus we've got the small boats. What's the difference there with Labour? Well, Labour actually, basically, half of them want open borders. So where are people supposed to go? They'd like to vote for parties like Reform UK or the Lib Dems or other parties. There are plenty. When you get your ballot paper, there's usually... often some 8 or 9 names on that, but they feel that those are wasted votes, and in reality often they are wasted.
Also, I think none of the above, Isabel, is going to do well this time. Just a quick update, it's all happening here, isn't it? A 28-year-old man from Surrey has been arrested on suspicion of assault, breach of the peace and causing public nuisance after Sir Keir Starmer was targeted with glitter during his conference speech.